Good morning and welcome back to the Breakfast Show. I hope you're having a good breakfast on a Thursday morning, very hot Thursday morning. We're currently live here in B.A.M.E studios where we're discussing a number of news topics at the moment. We just finished the topic on social media and teenage girls suffering from anxiety and depression. Moving on to our next topic, we're currently moving on to the Labour leadership contest, and I think it's been a pertinent issue that's been coming up in the news lately.
I think the issue was sprung up directly after Brexit, and I think that was the most scary thing about it. You know, we were in a moment of uncertainty, and straight after that we had the the Labour tilting in its shape and form in terms of it split the party. And I think that was the most scary thing about that, especially after Brexit. You know, we were unsure of how that would play out.
We currently have on the line someone to talk on behalf, not perhaps on behalf of Owen Smith, but rather someone who can give us a better view of what his policies are. We're currently joined by Hanif Khan, who's a Chancellor. And good morning, Hanif.
Good morning to you. Happy to be here. Good morning.
Good morning. Okay, so we were just looking at Owen Smith's policies. One that really stands out, it seems, is another EU referendum. How is that going to work?
Well, I think, like me and many others, we were kind of shocked. I mean, I was a Remain person, and when the country voted to leave the EU, it was a bit of a shock. But I think the interesting thing is that what are the terms that are currently there for us? I mean, will we have access to the market of the 50 million people that's there? What are the terms? So I think Brexit means Brexit, as Theresa May said, but what are the terms? People still don't know. I guess on both sides, it was a bit unclear, but the one that was most striking for the Remain campaign was that when the Leave campaign said that there was 350 million pounds that was spent or given to the European Union every week. But they never really mentioned about how much we used to get back in the rebate. So it was unclear messages that people were sort of receiving in the media. So I think where Owen Smith is offering a referendum to not necessarily to say yes, no, let's stay in Europe, but what are the terms that are there for us now? I mean, and that's the striking thing is, before we instigate Article 50.
Yeah. I mean, just looking at the Labour leadership contest, it's really been a matter of stabilising the party. And Labour, it seems like the Conservatives got that in order. They've got Theresa May in charge there, and they've got that sorted. It seems like the Labour leadership contest is really destabilising the whole party in itself. I mean, just last year, Corbyn was elected. I mean, don't you think there's an issue here that there's a growing concern that once this election takes place, there's no real, there has to be stability. Will Owen Smith provide that, or is not Corbyn already the man to lead it? Because he's got the support of the party members, no?
Yeah, I mean, there's quite a few things there. Owen Smith is obviously standing to be the next leader of the Labour Party because he wants to bring a radical change and to the credible, as a credible leader. But one thing I'd just like to explain to you, like for more than 100 years, the party has been the greatest force for social change that our country has ever known. I mean, if you think we created the NHS, we introduced the minimum wage, and we were always fighting for the worker rights. And I'm obviously incredibly proud to be part of a movement that has achieved so much. But now, as you say, the Tory leader government has sort of got themselves in place and they've sorted themselves up. And they are sort of slowly, piece by piece, destroying what we've built. For example, trying to privatise the NHS. They're now introducing freezing the public sector wages, and they're using, which we mentioned earlier about the Brexit, to reduce our rights as the worker rights. And so the Labour Party ideas are so much needed now to be a voice than ever before. So we need to sort ourselves out. I personally originally was a Jeremy Corbyn supporter, and I believed in a lot of what he said. and I think it resonated with so many people.
I mean, what made you switch?
As time moved on...
What made you switch, Hanif?
Yeah, well, there were a number of things that made me switch. And if you look at both sides, there is not much between Jeremy Corbyn and Owen in terms of policy. There are 3 or 4 sort of major differences. But the major one that made me change is that I love the Labour Party. I've been an active member ever since I can remember. But the left that has woken up is sort of putting a slightly ugly face on the Labour Party, which I've not seen before. And as a leader, they should stamp that out and say, not in my name, but be very forceful about it. And I think that probably didn't come across as much. The other thing is that I don't believe that Jeremy Corbyn fought a very, very strong campaign for us to remain in the EU. And I think that lackluster that's comes across in his nature, people didn't buy it. And I think the major reason is that at the end of the day, when you take away all the policies which are quite similar, it's who do you trust and who do you trust with the economy? Mm. And if you look at both Jeremy Corbyn and Owen Smith, you would choose Owen Smith because of his background, because of his charisma, and because of the way he engages and negotiates. I mean, it's really important to be able to negotiate, your side of the argument. And if we haven't been able to do that, then that's not great. And I believe Owen Smith can do it. So that was one of the reasons sort of I changed my mind and started supporting Owen Smith.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at one of these policies, just a last question before we move on.
Yeah.
The British New Deal, £200 billion to invest into renewing the country. What's that all about?
Well, if we don't invest in our country ourselves, then where else do we invest? And I think to generate more jobs, build more schools, build an infrastructure where the economy can flourish. And if you look at the situation now today, if the Labour Party hadn't built many of the schools we have today and many of the hospitals we have today, where would we be? So we still need to invest in our economy to generate jobs and security for our people, and that's the main thing. And having a £200 billion in the public services, it will help build more schools and hospitals.
Thank you very much, Chancellor Hanif Khan, for being on the Breakfast Show.
Oh, you're more than welcome. Thank you.
That was Hanif Khan really giving his view on what makes Owen Smith the ideal candidate.
Yeah, I think I did agree with a lot of what he said, especially on the way that he switched from Jeremy Corbyn to Owen Smith. I think I've gone through a similar transition over the past few weeks in that I've started to believe in Owen Smith's policies quite a lot.
So you've been swayed by his arguments? But they've both not been Prime Minister yet. These are all just pledges and promises, and we know what politicians say about pledges and promises.
Yeah, that is quite true as well. But no, I wouldn't say that I'm against Jeremy Corbyn just because I'm for Owen Smith. I believe in both of the candidates, but just in terms of that negotiating factor that Hanif was talking about. And, I have to admit, I think it's partially because of this negotiating a new deal with Europe in terms of a new referendum, or just, plain negotiating. I think that's the deciding factor for me in switching
negotiating
sides. In terms of, Owen Smith said that even if there isn't a new referendum, then the most important thing would be to look at the new deal that we do have with the EU.
Yeah.
And if that isn't at a satisfactory standard, then we would have a new referendum.
But the people have already decided. It's almost disrespecting the democratic process that took place, no?
I think I would have agreed with that. Straight after the referendum, we came out with this issue where what was it? How much was pledged to the NHS? Was it 250 million or 350 million?
I think it's about 350 million.
350 million. Don't quote me on that, please, because I can't remember.
I think it was every week or every month.
It was every week. 350 million pounds every week. And I think when that story came out, it really hit home about how we're struggling in terms of the scaremongering that took place. And I think one of the other issues that I'm having, right, is the fact that why I believe a lot of people voted for Brexit is simply because they have had enough with the politics in Britain, as opposed to actually agreeing with the policy. I think it was just a protest call. And I think we're having a similar, I would compare that to America, where we're having a similar situation, where people are voting for, there are many people who are voting for Donald Trump to be leader. And I think that's partially because of this protest against what they see as typical politics and what has been happening in the country for decades now. And I think this want for change, I think that's what's bringing these decisions forward. But I think people have realised now in Britain.
Yeah, I mean, just going back to your point on the EU referendum, I certainly agree. You had a lot of people that were dissatisfied with how things actually planned out, and another vote could possibly make the image a bit more clear and perhaps make people a bit more satisfied. There is that argument, yes, but we'll have to see how that's played out and who takes the brunt for that, because I think whoever proposes that idea is more or less going to be on the back foot, because of the fact that they're saying, well, you decided, now we're going to ask you again. Are you sure you really want this? So let's see how that goes. But currently we've had Chancellor Hanif Khan to talk about Owen Smith's credentials. Let's have a talk to Huda Elmi, who's also a supporter of Jeremy Corbyn. Good morning and welcome to the Breakfast Show, Huda Elmi.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Good morning. So I think the real problem we're having right now is that it seems the party members seems to be leaning towards Jeremy Corbyn, whereas the people that Corbyn actually needs to work with, the MPs, he hasn't got enough confidence or enough support there. How does Corbyn deal with this dilemma?
I think there definitely is like a disconnect between like the Parliament and the membership. And I think that really this debate can be widened up a bit more to talk about really the disconnect between those two kind of areas in the Labour Party. I think Corbyn poses really important questions as to where we move forward as the Labour Party. I think that what we see now is MPs who are supposed to be representatives of members and constituencies acting against the will of their constituencies. I think the most famous example obviously being Angela Eagle, who even though her own constituency voted in support of Jeremy Corbyn, kind of like stood against him at the very beginning of the leadership contest. So I think really this whole leadership contest in itself has kind of posed really important questions as to kind of who are the MPs meant to be representative of the members, or do the MPs have the will to be able to kind of direct the Labour Party in a way that completely goes against membership, making it the whole point redundant? I mean, who are you representing in Parliament? And I think really this is something before Corbyn. I think we talk about, for instance, losing the working class in like Labour heartland, such as the West Midlands, such as the North, and we talk about recapturing them. And it was a big thing for Ed Miliband as well in the 2015 general election. It's the reason why he pandered to the right on immigration, for instance.
I mean,
just it was about recapturing those people.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the idea you put forward. I mean, yes, there is a wider debate that can be had, and it certainly opens the debate up that to what extent are we connected with our voters. But in the immediate term, or rather by September, when the votes or the results will be read out, Corbyn will have to work with these MPs, and in that immediate future, how can he overcome that?
I think in terms of working with them, Corbyn has made concessions from the very beginning. He's had a very open, like, for instance, shadow cabinet, people from all kinds of different political walks of life within the Labour Party, and he's sort of given an opportunity to extend the olive branch as such, and it's them, the MPs, the onus was on them to work with him as well. I think from the very beginning, you can see when they were leaking stuff to the press from meetings, when they were discrediting the Labour Party in order to further their own gain and sort of discredit Corbyn, the leader of the Labour Party. So I think that kind of disloyalty has been there from the very beginning, from the very onset when he became leader of the Labour Party. And I think that it's just sort of the coup that did happen kind of personified in a case that kind of disloyalty that's been going on for quite some time.
I mean, I think
in terms of...
Go on.
I was just going to say, so in terms of working together, I was just going to say that Corbyn has always worked with them. And I think that really the question should sort of be, why are MPs putting their own political, motivations, putting their own political aspirations before having a united Labour Party? I have literally no sympathy for all of the MPs who talk about how, the Labour Party no longer is a united front, it no longer is a proper opposition.
Yeah.
Whose fault is that? Corbyn was doing his job. It was up to the MPs to do theirs.
I mean, I certainly agree with this idea that there needs to be a wider debate on I certainly agree with that aspect, that there needs to be that wider debate to see to what extent they're connected with the voters, and hopefully this Labour leadership contest should bring that out. Thank you, Huda. We just have to go to the news at the moment. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you so much.
So that was Huda Elmi, and of course you can get involved in the discussion as well, but right after this short news break.